All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday night's webinar. My name is Ben Jackson. I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer of the nonprofit Upsolve. For those who don't know Upsolve, we help people break free from debt and find their way to the American dream and build the future that they deserve. I do this work because about, 8 years ago. Wow, it seems like a lifetime ago. I had over $60,000 in credit card debt, and I was only making $20,000 a year driving Uber and Lyft. And it didn't matter how hard I worked. I couldn't overcome the interest on my debt. So I was falling further and further behind. The American dream was getting further away from me. And it was finding bankruptcy and using that to break free from that debt that set me on the path to recovery to build the life that I have today, where I'm able to provide for my family, where I was able to go to law school and ultimately to start Upsolve to help other people do the same through the absolute magic of the process of bankruptcy. So tonight, we're going to talk about who qualifies for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, how you can file without a lawyer. We're going to talk about what happens to your stuff when you file, and we can also talk about how to get started with Upsolve. But more importantly, this is a live session, so feel free to drop your comments and questions in the chat, and we will get to them as we go through. And even more importantly, it's my great pleasure tonight to introduce you all to Nick Brown. Nick is Upsolve's Director of Innovation. He is, in my humble opinion, an absolutely brilliant economic thinker who we're privileged to have on the team. Nick works every day to make sure that the Upsolve tools are really helpful, that they're accessible, and that they are free. So Nick, to give the world the first introduction to you as an Upsolve fixture, if you could instantly teach every American one thing about money, but you had to do it through an interpretive dance, what would the dance be called?
I think I would do the Dougie, and I think they would learn while doing it just how smoothly, filing bankruptcy can really be.
I love that. I was not expecting the Dougie. I also wouldn't have thought of the Dougie as an interpretive dance, but like to each their own. Let's go.
I think if you're trying to express bankruptcy as an idea,
That's obvious to me. So in your own words, Nick, like what is bankruptcy other than the Dougie?
So I'd say bankruptcy in the United States is the social safety net of last resort. After you go through all the other different ways the government can help, whether it be something like food stamps, housing assistance, or even none of them, it's the final reset that lets you get back on track in your life, overcome your debt, and achieve your dreams.
So you've done everything else. You've taken advantage of the things that are available to help. And maybe, like you said, you haven't even taken advantage of anything. You're just working super, super hard and it's not working. Like this is a way to get back on your feet.
Absolutely.
Who would you say it's good for? Like, is this something for everybody? Is it something just for like a select few people? What do you see to be true of people that file bankruptcy?
So they usually have a lot of debt relative to their income. They're usually struggling to make payments on their debt. Either they're making it, but they're really having a tough time meeting all the other basic necessities in their life, or they actually haven't been able to make their debt payments. Then from there, it's a wide variety. There's a reason why really wealthy people file bankruptcy a lot. Donald Trump famously has filed 6 times.
For
but
presidents.
when it comes to everyday Americans, it's especially great if you are a renter and you don't own any really expensive assets like a sports car.
Got it. So if you have something that you might lose in the bankruptcy process, it might not be the best fit, or you might need to think about it a little bit more carefully. But if you don't have a lot of assets, if you're really struggling, it can be something that works for you.
Yeah. And for most people who file, they don't lose anything. About 94% of Chapter 7 bankruptcy filers, which is what Upsolve helps with, never lose any property at all.
Did you know that about bankruptcy before you started working at Upsolve? That you don't lose
I didn't at all. The more I learn about bankruptcy, the more I'm like, wow, this really is like an awesome tool.
Amazing.
For improving your life.
Yeah, I love that. So this is a great question that came in from Instagram. I'm going to try to drop it into this chat since I have not yet figured out the brilliant technology to integrate them. So here we go. This is from Toast Mariel on Instagram. How do you determine if you're a candidate for bankruptcy? So Nick, I think you answered a lot of this already, but I think like, what if we reframe it like this? We said who it's good for. What do you think would tell you that it was good for you? Like, what sorts of things would you notice in your life or want to look at in your finances to determine if this is a right fit for you?
I would say so. First, you'd want to like do the costs and benefits, and so the cost would be the cost of paying the filing fees with the court. That's $338. If you hire an attorney, that's the cost of an attorney. That's about $1,500 to
Oh, wow.
$3,500.
Okay.
And then any property you could lose. If it turns out that you probably won't lose any property, then it's just a question of does it get rid of your debt and what's its impact on your credit score.
Okay.
So I can also walk through that.
So if I take a look at my money and like what you said earlier was you are doing everything you can and you're still falling behind on bill payments. Maybe like me, you're on food stamps at the time, and that you're still struggling, or you're working 2, 3 jobs and you're still struggling. You can't keep up with your bills. You feel like you'll never get ahead, that it doesn't matter what you do because there's no hope. Like those are sort of signals that, hey, maybe it's time to jump into that. Maybe this is for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another great way is I usually just tell people to try using Upsolve Screener.
Oh, I love it.
It will tell you if you qualify, and we're pretty conservative with letting people use our app. We only take simpler cases where it's usually very clearly in the person's interest to file bankruptcy. And even if you disqualify, we can connect you with an attorney who will provide a free consultation walking you through if it's right.
So where is this magical screener you speak of? Do I need to like Indiana Jones walk my way through the Temple of Doom and like pull it out from under the rock and put the bag back before the thing comes after me, or is this easy to find?
Yeah, so I'll if you can see my screen, this is the Upsolve homepage.
So
if you go
to there we go.
If you screener, it opens it up, explains what the tool is. So this is a tool to help you file bankruptcy on your own. This is just a screener though. So I'll put in my old zip code back when I lived in Massachusetts, and I haven't filed bankruptcy in the past 8 years. And I'll say I have over $10,000 in debt. Say there's 2 people in my household, and I do not make that much money. I have filed my taxes.
Wait, why do I need to tell you how much money I make?
Well, so if you make above the median income for the size of your household in your state, then you don't automatically qualify to be allowed to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You would have to do a more complicated thing called the means test to see if you still qualify.
Got it.
So I am not married. I don't have any expensive real estate. And I don't own an expensive car. Also, no personal injury claims.
Okay, because that's something that I might potentially lose in a bankruptcy proceeding.
Yes.
Got it.
And I'm also very fortunate to not have more than 30K in direct student loans.
So wait a minute. I thought student loans and bankruptcy were like not a thing, right? Like I've always heard if I file bankruptcy, student loans, which are the biggest amount of debt that most people have, for sure, it's the biggest amount of debt that I have, like that I was hopeless with that. Like I couldn't include them. Is that different now?
Yeah, so you can attempt to remove student loans in bankruptcy. You have
Okay.
to do a thing called an adversary proceeding, where
Okay.
you basically, after filing bankruptcy, you also tell the courts, hey, by the way, I can't afford
Hmm.
my student loan debt, and this is the reason I shouldn't have to be able to pay it. For
Gotcha.
example, I'm disabled, I'll never be able to pay it whatsoever, stuff like that. And our free tool can actually help you if you qualify,
Got it.
eliminate your student debt as well.
Great. We got a question in here, speaking of debt, from Cali Girl. Thanks for your question. So, hey, can I file an old IRS tax bill of $8,000? It's a great question. So, yeah, you usually can include old IRS tax bills in a bankruptcy filing. Whether it's going to get erased or not depends on how old it is and the type of tax debt that it was. So, typically, if it's like over 3 years old and you filed the return on time, or at least like 2 years ago, it might be dischargeable, and our tool will help you figure that out during the process. And the cool thing is too, like if it turns out that that thing is not dischargeable for you and you need some additional help, and like our tool can't do it, but it could be done, we can actually help you get connected with a bankruptcy lawyer for a free consultation that can help you determine if there's another way to get around that debt. So one of the things that we really like to do at Upsolve is say, like, if we can't help you with our tool, how can we help you find the help that you do need? And our support team, Nick has been involved in setting a lot of this up. Our support team does a really good job of helping point you in the right direction. Oh, another one, Brittany. Nick's answering all these questions about things that you have and could you lose them in bankruptcy. This is Nick. I'll let you handle this one.
Yeah, so Brittany asked, how do I protect my car during bankruptcy? And basically, there's these things called exemptions. There's two kinds. There's the state exemptions and the national exemptions or federal exemptions. And basically, you can pick one or the other. And they're amounts that you can keep of everything you own when you file. So it'll be something like, in my state, it says I can keep, I don't know, a car up to $10,000 in
Okay.
equity, stuff like that. And
So like the part of it
it,
that I don't owe on it, right? It's worth
yeah,
20,000. I've paid 10. I have 10,000 in equity. Like that's kind of the part that it would be protected.
exactly.
Okay, got it. So if you're current on your car payment, does it survive the bankruptcy? Does it go away in the bankruptcy? How does that work?
So it really depends on the value of your car. If you had like a super expensive car,
Hmm.
bankruptcy isn't designed to, just eliminate all your debt and
Hmm.
then not face any consequences if you actually, had the money because you could have sold the
Hmm.
car and paid the debt.
Yeah.
It turns out most of our users don't lose anything at
Hmm.
all when they file. And our app basically walks you through how much can be
Hmm.
protected and if your car will be protected. You can also choose to keep the car by, if you have a debt, by
Hmm.
continuing to pay the debt and kind of like removing it from the bankruptcy. So your debts get wiped, your other debts can get wiped away that are what's called dischargeable. Those are the
Hmm.
debts that can be eliminated in bankruptcy. And then you can choose to keep on paying the car debt and it becomes easier because you say you don't have payday loans and credit card debt anymore.
Brittany, I actually had exactly that concern when I filed bankruptcy. I was an Uber driver, right? So like I had to keep my car, and if we have any Uber drivers in the audience, your car has to be like of a certain level. It has to be nicer, not just kind of like the old beater type that I thought I could protect in bankruptcy. And I was able to, even though it was worth more than the exemption amount, I was able to continue the loan by doing a reaffirmation. Like the judge and the trustee in this process, like they're not out there to take your stuff. They're out there to help you figure out how to get back on your feet. And to Nick's point, most of our users end up not losing their car, just like I did. Wow, we have a lot of questions coming in here. So what would be considered a household? Nick, you had that screen up a second ago that was asking about household income. What if you're supporting family members that don't reside in the same residence? However, you are on the lease where they reside. That is a good question, Chi Chi. So, generally speaking, the household is what's considered an IRS household. So if you go on Google and search like IRS tax household, they'll have a bunch of criteria that will explain when somebody's considered part of your household or not. Usually what it means is they are responsible, like the people that you live with or support or whatever, like they're responsible for some portion of your expenses, meaning some portion of their income could be allocated to your income because they pay some of your bills. So for example, if you have somebody, like your son that lives in your house and gives you $500 a month for rent or something like that, that would be considered part of your household in terms of that income level. But again, situations do vary. One thing that I like to do is go on Google or go on ChatGPT or whatever and like literally just write in the situation. Like, I am this situation, I live in this section of the country. Here's who pays my bills, yada, yada, yada. Are they part of my household? And a lot of times you'll get an answer to that question. And if not, you can use the Upsolve tool. It'll help you figure that out once you get past the screener. And if it is a situation where we aren't able to help you, we'll get you connected to a lawyer who can. Thanks for the question. What if we get a lot of LLC questions? What if you have a single member LLC? Can our tool work for that? Nick, do you know the answer to that question? I've been talking a lot.
I do not, unfortunately.
Okay, that's okay. So a single member LLC, if the debts belong to the LLC, the tool wouldn't be able to do the bankruptcy for that. But if the debts belong to you, so it's like a sole proprietorship, then it would be just a standard Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So it's going to kind of depend on how it's actually structured. If it's a true LLC, and again, I'm not a lawyer, not legal advice, not tax advice, but if it's considered an actual LLC where you've kept the assets sufficiently separate, you're not kind of like mixing things together, then generally speaking, it's not going to be part of the bankruptcy. It's only if you're operating, it's under your name, you don't actually have a legal entity, you don't keep your assets separated, that sort of thing, then it would potentially work as a standard consumer bankruptcy and be included. Denisha, thanks for your question. Planning to file 921. Can I still use my credit card to pay rent? Wow, great question. I wish I could have paid rent on a credit card and gotten those points back in the day, but that's, it's a tough spot to be in when you're thinking about filing for bankruptcy. Nick, do you have any thoughts on that?
So I'm not a lawyer, and I want you to correct me, Ben, if I'm wrong.
Perfect. That's okay.
My understanding is you shouldn't be putting large amounts of money on your credit card before within 90 days of filing, because there's needs to be like a presumption that you were going to intend to pay it back in that time window before filing.
Yeah. So Nick's exactly right. There's a couple of reasons to not do that. Again, I'm not going to tell you to not do that, but there's a couple things to think about that when many of our users are in situations like that, they end up not paying that rent. So the first is if you make payments prior to, or if you make a bunch of purchases that seem, crazy, let's say you go out and make like a bunch of purchases at Best Buy or something like that, that could look to the trustee like fraud, right? So a bunch of big purchases prior to bankruptcy can make it harder to go through the bankruptcy process, right? Because it's like, oh, they just bought stuff and then filed bankruptcy. So generally speaking, you want to avoid big purchases, even if they're reasonable, right? Like paying your rent is reasonable. You got to do it or you're worried about getting evicted. But having big purchases gives you another question to answer, and that can be tricky. The other reason that a lot of people don't do this is because you pay your rent because you're, one, trying to make good on your obligations, trying not to get evicted, right? Like that's what we're all really worried about. Am I going to lose my apartment? And during a bankruptcy proceeding, it stops all legal proceedings against you. So unless you were like about to be evicted because your landlord had sued you for eviction, they got an order from a judge, the sheriff was showing up tomorrow, a bankruptcy would stop that proceeding. And so generally speaking, if you're really struggling, it's better to kind of just let everything sit, not make a bunch of financial decisions and purchases, do the bankruptcy as fast as you possibly can in that workflow, and then figure out what to do after that. Because you can get really stressed out trying to figure out what to file when, and ultimately clearing the slate is a thing that'll let you make those decisions a little bit more clearly after the fact. Thanks for the question. Man, this is an active crew tonight. I'm loving this. So let's see. We've got this question here. Nick, I'm sorry you were doing such a great demo, but the audience is speaking. So I read that in order to exclude the car in a bankruptcy, it has to be brought current. Is that correct? I'm in Florida. So generally speaking, yes. If you want to keep the car after the bankruptcy, you would need to be current on your loan. So that's one situation. And again, not legal advice. If you really want to know a more detailed answer, ask a lawyer. But that's one situation where it can be good to stay current on all payments prior to bankruptcy. Okay, let's see what else we have here. My tax bills. This is Cali Girl. In response to your earlier question, can I file if it's an old IRS tax bill of $8,000? And then you said it's from 2013. Yeah, so that's a good question, Callie. Again, it's going to depend on the type of tax debt and the specifics. Which the best way to figure that out is to start our tool, get to the section where you're talking about tax debt, answer the question, and it'll walk you through figuring that out. Rent is part of living expenses, I believe. What if you've usually used your CC for rent? Yeah, so this is Chi-Chi, a follow-on to that question about should I pay rent or not? Same answer. It doesn't really matter what you used to do. The best thing to do if you know for sure you're filing bankruptcy is to just file bankruptcy and let the proceedings continue from there. Now, if you want to keep up a relationship with your landlord, if you really just feel morally opposed to not paying a debt at some point when it's owed, that's totally fine. Like nothing bad generally is going to happen if you do make that payment. But if you're struggling, if you're considering bankruptcy, keep in mind also that cash that you have at the point of filing bankruptcy that could be used for other things, sometimes you get to keep post-bankruptcy. So maybe, not paying off a debt means you have more money to restart your life post-bankruptcy, and it's best to let the bankruptcy process figure that out. So again, great question. Valpo, I see your follow-up to this, and then I'm gonna let Nick answer some more questions. My goodness, people are active tonight. So I see your follow-up saying you asked about the LLC, and you said all of the debt is you and not the LLC. So typically that's going to be what's called a sole proprietorship, not a true LLC. If there's no tax entity, if it's all you, that debt would be able to be included in the bankruptcy unless there's some suspicion of fraud for some reason, which I doubt there would be. Great question. Denisha, active. Nick, I promise I'll ask you another question. Can I still keep my checking account once I file bankruptcy? What do you think?
So usually the answer is yes. There could be special scenarios where perhaps you owed a bank a ton of money. In that case, maybe they would close it if you filed bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. They usually don't do that. My understanding, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, is banks like having people as clients, especially after they file bankruptcy. They don't like if you eliminate a debt you owe to them, but they now like that actually, now that you don't have debt, you have a clean slate and you're actually a lot more likely to pay your debts going forward. Yeah. So why would they want to lose you as a client?
Yeah, generally you're not going to have any assets that you have garnished if they're protected by a exemption, which for most Upsolve users, as Nick mentioned, is the case. All right, Nick, question for you. We've talked so much about bankruptcy and answered so many questions. What do you do at Upsolve? Like, what is your role there?
So basically, I do data analysis, and I look for where our users are having trouble with our app and how we can improve our website so more people are convinced to start using our web app. And so this might look like, I look at one page on our website and I notice that page says you could be debt-free in 4 months, and the other pages don't say that. And then I notice that page, a lot more people want to actually end up filing bankruptcy with Upsolve because they saw that. And I realized, oh, that's actually a really compelling phrasing to use. So then we start trying that out on other
Hmm.
pages. And then more people actually end up filing bankruptcy.
That sounds like a really useful skill that could have made you a lot of money. How did you end up here working in a nonprofit doing that?
So I actually, I first joined Upsolve in 2019 as an intern. And then after I graduated from college, I went into finance. And I liked doing the work in finance every single day. But then I was looking back at my life, and it didn't look the way I wanted it to be. I had previously really enjoyed Upsolve because I found the work so meaningful. One of the things that's most important to me is helping people get a fresh start in life. And I was basically helping wealthy people become even wealthier.
Yeah.
And no hate or shame on if people do that. I personally liked it a lot, actually. I just love working at Upsolve so much more.
I love that. What did you want to be when you grew up? Like, this is not, being a data analyst is not something I don't think I even knew existed when I was a kid. Like, what was your grand plan for your life?
So when I was little, I loved building really complicated stuff out of Legos.
I love that. Yeah.
And I used to construct like really complicated stuff out of wood. Like in sixth grade, I made a chair in the style from the 1920s. And I loved just like that. So I thought I was going to be like a furniture designer or maybe an engineer.
That makes a lot of sense though, because you do build a lot of systems and like do like a lot of detailed analysis and testing. So I can totally see how that pulled over. What is your, like when you hear the word debt, like I think when I used to hear the word debt, I thought shameful, like I was in kind of the world of like Dave Ramsey, Run from Debt, like because I grew up as an evangelical Christian where that was all over the place. What did you think of when you heard the word debt when you were working in this finance world, and how has that changed over the years?
Yeah, so the financial view of debt is very different. It's not moralized the way it is.
What do you mean by moralized?
Like people think it's bad. You know, there's all of these inscriptions in religious texts. You know, it's against the moral law or it's against God's will to charge interest, stuff like that. It's called usury in medieval times.
What a crazy
in
word.
Finance, it's seen very differently. It's just you enter an agreement where someone gives you money today and then you give them money in the future, and they don't actually expect you to pay it all back. That's why they charge interest. So across everyone in society, they expect some percentage of people to just not pay it back and file bankruptcy. And they make money because the interest rate is higher than the number of people that file bankruptcy.
Some breakthrough just said human ancestry knew. We knew that it was didn't need to be a shameful thing. It was valuable. Yeah, I love that. I think of it very similarly. We had a couple more questions in while we were talking. So JW, actually, 1 second. I can't find it now. I lost it in the chat thread. We have tax debt and student loans that would outlive a bankruptcy. I'm scared that we're just kicking the can down the road. Nick, you used to be an analyst who thought about the future and the best way to get to the future that you wanted. What do you think about this question?
I'm not sure it's even a question. It's more of a statement.
Yeah,
I think
about the statement.
Well, let's see. I would look into meeting with an attorney or taking Upsolve Screener to see and using the app to see if you actually maybe could eliminate your tax debt and student loans. And even if we can't help with that, we'll recommend that you talk to an attorney who could see that it maybe could be the case that you actually could eliminate either or both those debts with bankruptcy.
So I think there's a simple math answer to this question too. Tax debt, it's expensive. Takes money out of your income every month. Student loans, same thing, money out of your income. You only have so much income, and the more things taking money out of it, the less money you have for other things, right? Like if I have $100 and I have $90 in expenses, I only have $10 left, and that's hard to deal with. So think about all of the drains on your income that could potentially go away in bankruptcy. Credit card debt, personal loans, things that take away from that finite amount of income every month. What a lot of our users find is even if things like tax debt or student loans survive their bankruptcy, their lives still just get infinitely easier because they don't have those drains on their income from their credit cards, personal loans, etc. And then you can actually pay your student loans back. So I have student loans right now. I filed bankruptcy. I still have student loans, but they're easier to deal with because I'm not paying, thousands of dollars a month in interest on my credit cards. So kicking the can down the road on student loans, yes, but we all are, right? Like we all pay our student loan debt in the future until hopefully somebody makes it go away. Thanks for your question. All right, Nick. So we're coming up to the end of our time here. I really appreciate you being on this call tonight. What is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's struggling financially?
Well, I'd say if you have debt, really look into bankruptcy. If you don't, ultimately, it's a question of income versus expenses. You to live a financially stable life, you need to earn more money than you spend. And earning doesn't have to just be a wage. There's also a variety of government benefits. There's about I think 25 to 30 major different kinds of benefits. So I would really look into all those different kinds of benefits that are out there, as well as potentially looking into if you can raise your income somehow or cut unnecessary expenses if possible.
Yeah, so I love your advice. It's so simple. If you're dealing with debt and that debt is more than you can afford, it's probably holding you back. So get out of that debt as soon as you possibly can and get creative with it, right? Like don't think about bankruptcy or debt as shameful. Think about it as just numbers on a paper that we figure out how to deal with, and that makes it a lot easier to get ahead. Well, that's the time we have tonight, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. If you take away one thing beyond what Nick said, let it be this. Bankruptcy was designed to give people a chance who are struggling to get back on their feet and achieve the American dream. It's available. It's out there. We make it quick, easy, and affordable at upsolve.org. And by affordable, I mean free. Free to use our tool. If you're drowning in debt, you deserve relief, and that can be your path forward. If you have questions or you know anybody that would benefit from being on a webinar like this and getting a chance to hear from us and ask their questions, send them to our Monday night webinars. You can subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We have them every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we'd love to chat with you in the future. Thanks so much, everybody, and